This is still Unit 1 Quadratic Functions and Expressions. This is Day 6, Factoring by Grouping. So while you could do this problem without having to use grouping, I am going to show it with using grouping, so you'll get a handle for it. To factor by grouping, start by taking the leading coefficient, in this case 1, multiplying it with the constant. So 1 times negative 15 is negative 15. And now I'm going to write down things that multiply to negative 15. What I'm looking for is what will add to 14. So negative 1 times 15, and that's actually the pair that I'm looking for here. That adds to positive 14. Now what that tells me to do is to split up the 14x as minus 1x plus 15x, and that's from over here. And now what I'll do is I have two separate groups. I have this first group and second group, and I'm going to factor those two groups independently. So the first group has a greatest common factor of x, which would leave me with x to the first minus 1. The second group has a greatest common factor of 15. I will use positive 15 due to the leading sign. So plus 15. And now I'll have, when I divide out that 15, I'll have x minus 1. And now, because both the x and the plus 15 are getting both multiplied by x minus 1, the x minus 1 has been distributed to them, so my factors are x minus 1 and x plus 15. And this is factoring by grouping, and we're going to do it with different leading coefficients other than 1 now. This is example 2, so we're going to go through the same process. Also, always check for a greatest common factor first. If there's something that can divide out of all three terms, do that. In this case, there's not, so 7 times negative 6 is negative 42. And now I'll run through things that multiply negative 42. Negative 1 times 42, that does not add to 19. Negative 2 times 21 does. So now that's how I will split up the 19n. So I now have 7n squared minus 2m plus 21n minus 6. Now I'll factor my two groups that I've got. On the first group, the greatest common factor is n, which leaves me with 7n minus 2. I factored that out. On the second group, the greatest common factor is 3. And I'm going to use positive due to the first sign. You always go off of that first sign. So plus 3, and that leaves me with 7n minus 2 when I factor that out. Because the 7n's minus 2 match, they've been distributed to the n plus 3. So my factors are n plus 3 and 7n minus 2. Just one more for example 3 like that. So take the 10, multiply it with the 12. Also check for greatest common factors. In this case there were not any. So 10 times 12 is 120. I'm needing to multiply to positive 120. My numbers will add to a negative though, so that tells me they're going to both need to be negative. So when I start listing them out, negative 1 times negative 120, that's a no. That does not add to negative 23. Negative 2 times negative 60, still not adding to negative 23. Negative 3 times negative 40, no. Negative 4 times negative 30, no. Negative 5 times negative 24, no. Negative 6 times negative 20, no. Negative 7 won't go into 120. Negative 8 times negative 15. Finally found the winner right there. So sometimes you have to go through a bit of a process here. That's going to add to negative 23. Now I'm going to go up here and split up the negative 23x using that information. So minus 8x minus 15x plus 12. By the way, it never does matter if you swap these two. That's not going to make a difference. Your steps will look different during it, but you come to the same answer. Moving right along, for the first group, it has a greatest common factor of x. Actually, higher than that, excuse me. It has a greatest common factor of 2x, which leaves you with 5x minus 4. For the second group, it has a greatest common factor of negative 3. Now, why negative? Because of this first sign. Always go off of that. When I pull out negative 3, I'll have positive 5x minus 4, because 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. So now the 5x minus 4's match, and my factors are 2x minus 3 times 5x minus 4. Alright, on our very last problem of the day, it looks innocent enough, but just pointing out something to you here is that sometimes this will happen. When you look at the problem, look for greatest common factor. There's not one. So I'd start factoring just like we have been. 2 times 5 is 10. And you just go ahead and start. So 1 times 10, well, that's not 8. 2 times 5, well, that doesn't add to 8 either. And there's nothing else there. There's no other numbers that multiply to 10 and will add to 8. So what's happening here? This expression is prime. This is as factored of an expression as it can be. In other words, like if you were told to prime factor the number 15, you would write 3 times 5. But if you were told to prime factor the number 7, your answer would be 7, because it's a prime number. Well, this expression is prime. So just watch out for that. It's kind of rare for you to see it, but it is out there. That wraps up day 6, factoring by grouping.